Midair collision over Cerritos, the tragedy of Aeromexico, Flight 498. On the warm Sunday of August 31st, 1986, a tragic mid-air collision over the quiet suburbs of Cerritos, California, would result in one of the deadliest aviation disasters in United States history. Aeromexico Flight 498, a scheduled passenger flight from Mexico City to Los Angeles with stops in Guadalajara, Laredo, and Tijuana, was on its final leg to Los Angeles International Airport. The aircraft was a McDonnell Douglas DC-932, a narrow-body jet that had been in service for several years. On board were 58 people, including passengers and crew, unaware that their journey was about to come to a devastating end. At the same time, a Piper PA-28 181 Archer, a small four-seat single-engine aircraft, was flying in the same airspace. The Piper was being piloted by a civilian pilot, accompanied by two family members. They had departed from Torrance Airport and were en route to Big Bear City, flying under visual flight rules, which meant the pilot was navigating without air traffic control guidance and was responsible for seeing and avoiding other aircraft. This mode of flying, although common for small private planes, poses a serious risk in busy, controlled airspaces such as that surrounding Los Angeles. As Flight 498 descended toward Los Angeles International Airport, it entered the Terminal Control Area, a region of controlled airspace designed to keep arriving and departing commercial flights separated from other aircraft. However, the Piper Archer had entered this space without clearance. The aircraft had not filed a flight plan and was not in contact with air traffic control. Its intrusion into restricted airspace went unnoticed by controllers due to the limitations of radar technology at the time, particularly in identifying aircraft not equipped with transponders that could report altitude. At approximately 11:52 a.m., while descending through 6,500 feet, the Aeromexico DC-9 and the Piper Archer collided in mid-air over Cerritos. The Piper's right wing sliced through the DC-9's horizontal stabilizer and tail section, immediately crippling the larger jet. The impact severed vital control surfaces on the DC-9, causing it to lose stability. The aircraft entered a steep dive and crashed into a residential neighborhood in Cerritos, destroying homes, killing all 64 people on the DC-9, the 3 occupants of the Piper, and 15 people on the ground. A total of 82 lives were lost in a matter of seconds, and an entire community was shaken to its core. The destruction on the ground was immense. Fire engulfed multiple homes, and debris was scattered across several blocks. First responders arrived at the scene quickly, but there was little they could do to save lives. Instead, they focused on putting out fires, treating survivors on the ground, and beginning the grueling process of recovery. Many local residents lost family members, neighbors, and their homes. The psychological scars left by the accident would linger for decades in the community. In the aftermath of the crash, the National Transportation Safety Board, NTSB, launched a thorough investigation. The key finding was that the Piper Archer had strayed into controlled airspace without clearance, and air traffic control systems had not detected or addressed the intrusion in time. Furthermore, the lack of altitude reporting equipment on the Piper made it difficult for controllers to identify its presence. the pilots aboard Aeromexico Flight 498 had no visual warning of the approaching small aircraft and were unable to avoid the collision. The tragedy highlighted significant flaws in the air traffic control system and sparked widespread changes in aviation policy and safety regulations. One of the most important changes was the mandatory implementation of the Traffic Collision Avoidance System, or TCAS, on commercial aircraft. TCAS allows aircraft to detect and avoid other aircraft by warning pilots of potential collisions. Additionally, the FAA established more stringent rules for aircraft operating under visual flight rules near busy airports. All aircraft flying in controlled airspace were eventually required to carry altitude reporting transponders, which made it easier for radar systems and controllers to track aircraft more accurately. Public outrage over the disaster was profound. The citizens of Cerritos and neighboring areas demanded answers and accountability. Lawsuits were filed against the FAA and the owners of the Piper Archer, alleging negligence in both oversight and enforcement of airspace regulations. Memorials were erected in Cerritos to honor the victims, and every year, survivors and families gather to remember the lives lost. Despite the grief and devastation caused by the accident, it ultimately led to significant improvements in aviation safety. The Aeromexico Flight 498 tragedy served as a harsh but necessary wake-up call for regulators and the aviation industry. By learning from the mistakes and system failures that contributed to the crash, new layers of protection were added to prevent such accidents from happening again. Today, air travel is safer than ever, thanks in part to the hard lessons learned from events like the Cerritos Midair collision. Pilots now receive more comprehensive training on airspace navigation and collision avoidance. Air traffic controllers operate with more sophisticated technology, and systems are in place to alert both pilots and controllers if an aircraft deviates from its intended flight path. The story of Aeromexico Flight 498 is more than just a tale of tragedy. It is a powerful reminder of how quickly things can go wrong in the skies and how vital it is for all aspects of aviation, from private pilots to air traffic controllers to commercial airline crews, to work together within a clear and reliable system. The memory of the lives lost continues to inspire vigilance and innovation in air travel safety. Even decades later, the Cerritos disaster remains one of the most important case studies in aviation history. It is studied in pilot schools, regulatory agencies, and safety seminars around the world. Families who lost loved ones have turned their pain into advocacy, pushing for transparency and further reforms. What happened in the sky above Cerritos that day was tragic beyond words, but it also marked a turning point that helped shape the modern landscape of air safety. For the families of the victims and the residents of Cerritos, healing has taken time. The scars may never fully disappear, but through remembrance and progress, the legacy of Aeromexico Flight 498 endures. It reminds us not only of the fragility of life, but also of our collective responsibility to ensure that the skies remain safe for everyone.